Representative Landry.
Thank you. I apologize if I asked something that was asked earlier. I was on a phone call. And so my understanding is y'all are both really new in your roles, and that when you answer questions, it's either based on knowledge you've gained or on an expectation moving forward. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I asked this question earlier of Mr. Henderson, but are you aware of any risk that federal funds may be withheld from the LSU system because of noncompliance with Title IX?
We're definitely aware of the risk. That's always a risk and a concern. Yes.
Is there any sort of open investigation by the federal government right now?
There's a Clery Act. You can probably answer this much more clearly than I can, but there's a Clery Act inquiry into whether or not we've reported under the Clery Act.
Okay. Is there any time frame or estimate for that?
We actually just held, it's a Clery offsite audit. We just held our opening conference, and they're hoping to conclude it within this year. But within
Be a while.
But it's United States Department of Education.
Mm-hmm.
They did tell us they're transitioning staff right now because of the change in the administration. So we're expecting probably 10 to 16 months.
Okay. To the extent you can answer this question, are there any civil lawsuits pending against the university right now because of recent noncompliance with Title IX?
We have one claim, and it's not because of, well, I'm as the lawyer.
I'll say just related to anything we're discussing today.
We have one unique Title IX claim, and that's the Max Groover case. I don't know if y'all recall, Max Groover was the young man who died after a
Hazing.
pledge incident, hazing incident. The nature, one of the claims his lawyer made is that we've had a disparate enforcement of hazing rules on sororities as opposed to fraternities, and they filed it in federal court as a Title IX claim. So that's actually our pending Title IX lawsuit.
But there are no other private suits that you're aware of?
No, not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. Something I'm a little curious about, I know there's been a lot of discussion about, from the report, that there wasn't enough staff, there wasn't, basically enough resources. Who or what group of people decided that? Like if someone, I don't remember all the names, there's so many in here, went and said, I need more staff, who would that person have gone to?
Well, in the report, I know this, the Title IX coordinator reports to me. So in that section of the report, I was paid particularly close attention. She had made a presentation, I believe it was to the general counsel and the president, about what she thought an appropriate staff would be. When she made that presentation, she was the only person in the Title IX office because they had just begun to build out the office. And so she was saying, as we build out the office, this is what I think an appropriate staffing was look like. I believe that was 2016.
About 5 years ago, right? And so have there not been any requests, to the extent you know, for more staff since then? Because they seem wildly understaffed.
We actually, and the president may remember this, we had a discussion about staffing, and it was, you have to understand, I started in February, the president started in January, and in March we went remote for the next 6 months. So assessing staffing, after my first 4 weeks in office was difficult, but in the middle of revamping for the new Title IX regulations, we did have a discussion about it was really hard for two people to review 2,000 pages of new regulations and do what they needed to do in Title IX. And I actually took myself and another full-time lawyer to assist Title IX in revamping our processes for the new regulations. And we were talking about we have to add more Title IX staff. So we talked about it this summer.
I mean, I'm sure y'all must be aware that other schools Tulane, for example, have entire offices. And obviously there's different financial situations and different sizes and that sort of thing. But when I saw that there was one investigator for
Yes.
this many students, I mean, that's just not possible. to happen.
We were aware of that, yes.
But your predecessors, were they aware?
I'm not,
Again,
yeah.
to the
I don't
extent you know.
I don't know. I can tell you just based on a handful of, not a handful, based on conversations, the few conversations I've had with folks within my office, the concept of the Title IX coordinator being in the general counsel's office was never intended to be a permanent solution. It was a stopgap solution for creating the office because they could easily lean on the attorneys in the office for support, but it was always the expectation it would be built out in its own office, and it just never occurred.
Just didn't happen. Right. I want to switch a little bit. So this report from Morgan and Lewis, was that 17?
19. It was the fall of 2019.
2019. So that was before y'all were there, right? Who requested that?
My understanding is the prior general counsel requested that report.
Okay. Do you know much around the circumstances that led to the request?
A little bit, yes.
Could you describe it
Yes.
for us?
There were actually some concerns about the student athlete who had, at the time, her father had retained a lawyer, a prominent local lawyer, to potentially pursue a claim against the school. And my understanding is he reached out to Morgan Lewis to do a couple of things. One, evaluate the athletics department's understanding of their Title IX obligations and whether they needed some help in complying. The second part was to evaluate potential exposure from the student athlete because he had become aware her father had retained a lawyer.
So the Morgan Lewis wasn't a complete analysis.
No,
it was more specific.
Yeah, it was, my understanding is it was a targeted evaluation by the general counsel, one, to assess problems, and two, to assess a liability.
Some of the same problems that are in the Hush-Blackwell report. Some of the same cases.
Were discussed in the Morgan Lewis report.
They're not discussed in the report. The report discusses no cases at all. The report just makes general recommendations, and the report was not shared. We learned of the report, the two of us learned of the report pursuant to a records request in this investigation.
This is kind of leading to my next round of questions. I would like to see that report. Has it been released?
No, that report has not been released.
Is it under any sort of privilege? Ish.
What we've learned is that the reason it was originally requested was by an attorney for the university to assess a potential liability for the university. So much of it was made available through Hush-Blackwell. We can reconsider whether we want to consider it attorney-client privilege.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was requested
Yeah.
solely from the general counsel's
Yeah.
office?
Yeah,
Okay.
at the time, which is something, at the time the Morgan Lewis report was requested, a lot of these claims were early within their prescriptive period, and he was dealing with the potential for lawsuits.
Right. No, that makes sense. Okay. Does Taylor Porter still work for your office?
Yes.
Okay. That's a whole other discussion. Whole other discussion. I think I just want to end on, and I'm not sure how or why or where this came out, but these emails on page 50 about Coach Miles were the most disturbing part of this report to me, that so many people knew exactly what was going on and put it in writing, which was what I couldn't believe, that this was put in writing back in 2013, and we're just finding out about it now in 2021. And echoing Rep. Freeman and Senator Peterson about the Catholic Church, I am extremely concerned about the amount of people he has potentially harmed since then. And I hope that whatever y'all are doing now and whatever Kansas is doing is taking that into account, not just from a legal perspective, but just ethically as well.
Representative Landry, if I could add something. One of the things, and I know you guys have Scott Schneider from Hush-Blackwell on the phone to answer some questions, that we did is that's very different from any investigation that we know of that was done before LSU, done before at LSU, is we left no stone unturned And not only did we leave no stone unturned, when we uncovered some stuff, we shared it with our outside investigators. The reason you see stuff like this is because we spend a lot of time with IT data mining
Finding
emails.
things.
I mean, data mining an email from 2013 is not an easy.
I know.
You know,
I know.
For a former
Which is
employee-
why it was surprising.
for a former employee who's been gone for 2 or 3 years, it took some work to find this stuff, and we asked people to work really hard to find it. We recreated a lot of email accounts that had been long since disbanded. We did a lot of work to share a lot of stuff that has never been shared before, which is why you see these emails. And if you read the whole report, you'll see a lot of references to a lot of documents no one's ever seen.
I got pretty far through it yesterday. And that actually, it does look like, from my perspective, that a lot has happened in the last year to uncover it. And that's, I guess, what is concerning, that in 13 here, and then the Morgan Lewis report strongly suggests that a lot of people knew, not even just suggest, said that they knew that a lot was going on. And I'm just concerned if some of those people are still at the university, and what's going to happen to them. I guess y'all will be back here telling us that at some point.
And I'm going to sound defensive again, but none of the three of us had any awareness at all about any of these emails or the 2013 matter or the investigation at all. We literally, I think the 2013 stuff we learned about less than 5-6 weeks ago.
Sorry, so that was my last question, but this will be my last question. Is there currently a process to determine if anyone, for example, involved in the 2013 incident or anything investigated in 2017, are y'all currently looking to see if anyone who might be responsible for that is still at the university?
We are looking
And
at
that's
that.
ongoing? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Landry.